Ask yourself what you're passionate about and what you want to change. Is it clean air and a healthy climate, your children's health, clean rivers and streams, or healthy food and sustainable farms? Now that you have identified your passion, the question is, what can you do to make a difference? In this portion of the training, we are going to present tools that will help you start to make your passion a reality in your local community. Basically, we need to utilize the principles of asset-based community development and ask ourselves, what assets do we have in our communities that we can utilize to get work done? In essence, we need to ask ourselves what resources we have at our disposal rather than what resources we need. Asking this question empowers individuals and community members and allows them to get more done. Next, how do we convey our message to get people to act? We will talk about the principles of community-based social marketing and whether peer pressure really works to get people to take action. Lastly, participation. In both of these strategies, participation is key. Participation is the driving force in all of the literature and work that has been done on creating change. As leaders, the more we encourage participation in our communities, the louder our voices will be. By working together, we can help safeguard what Oregonians love about Oregon. The first of these concepts is asset mapping. As we begin to learn a little bit more about community mapping, I want you all to understand that community mapping is a tool that is used around the world to lead development projects and build community. It may be used in your local neighborhood association or a rural village in India. I'll be the first to admit that when I was first introduced to these concepts, I had my doubts. I wasn't convinced that going through the exercises would actually help me think about these things differently. I thought, well, yeah, I suppose, but isn't it all common sense? It turns out I was wrong. My experiences living and working in Morocco showed time after time that projects utilizing these techniques were substantially more effective than those projects that ignored these steps. I myself utilized asset mapping to continue to connect myself with a large network of NGOs as well as regional and national government ministries. In the end, these tools made it possible for me to bring a wide array of stakeholders to the table to implement programs to increase environmental, health, and science education in not only my own community, but rural and urban areas throughout the entire province. When I returned to the States, I realized the potential capacity these tools have to help in our work here. My point is that by pushing yourself to really embrace these steps, you may be able to surpass the possibilities that you thought were possible. We have worked to tailor the traditional community mapping exercises to what will be applicable to you as an OEC volunteer. Basically, we recommend that you look at local expertise and tap into the information and knowledge in your community, as well as community partnerships that might be able to provide you with resources like a venue or an audience. And then get started and plan your project. We'll go through each of these steps together and figure out how we can utilize them as OEC volunteers. The first of these resources that we are going to address is people. The most essential part of creating change is including the people we know. The question is, how do we get people involved? Well, it's simple. We ask. When asked why people volunteer, the answer is often, somebody I knew asked me to get involved. And that's where you come in. Think of everyone that you know, tell them about the work you are doing, and why it's important to you. You can use the exercise we did previously when we learned about OEC and our work to figure out how to articulate why you are involved with OEC and why our work is important to you. You will find this in the Who We Are section starting on page 5 of your guide. And then, after you figure out who you know, ask them to get involved. I know when I do this exercise, it is difficult not to leave people off that I don't think will take action or I don't think will care. I know, like all of you, I know which of my friends I think are interested in environmental issues and those that I think could care less. And I simply don't want to ask, but does that really mean they aren't interested? I challenge you as volunteers and environmentalists to push past your comfort zones and ask people to get involved that you may have not thought of before. This is the only way to increase participation. There is really no magic recipe to get individuals involved. We all have to work together to grow our networks and act on issues that we find important. Please pause the video and go to page 16 and 17 of your guide and complete the Who Do You Know exercise. The first part of asset mapping is identifying local expertise in your community. The local expertise you have at your disposal includes you. First, identify what you know. What are your strengths and knowledge that you can share with your local community? Then, what does OEC know? What resources and knowledge can we offer that you might be able to share with those people in your networks? From the people you know that you identified in the previous exercise, who can you work with on your project and who might provide some type of added knowledge to what you choose to work on? Last, look at the knowledge of local institutions. Are there people that are experts at local institutions that might be helpful for you to fulfill your goals? Or do they have resources? For example, Metro has a ton of great resources on ways to live more sustainably, like gardening guides and their green cleaning recipe book. Can you request resources from them to distribute when you are talking about OEC? Now go through the activity on page 18 so that you can get a better idea of how to go about this. Work within the framework of doing outreach as an OEC volunteer, but I don't want you to limit yourself by having a particular goal in mind. Really push yourself to identify resources that you may not have known about before. You can refer to page 15 of your guide for ideas on how to go about this. Pause the video now and complete the exercise. Now that you have identified the knowledge and skills in your community, it is time to look at the resources and potential partnerships in your community that might help you on your mission. These are the tangible resources that are much easier for us to visualize. Think about who has time or labor, who can help you better communicate your message, who has space and facilities, materials and equipment, or money and goods that might be helpful for you to complete your project. And most importantly, think about who has a shared mission and who might be compelled or willing to partner with you on your project. When going through this process, it is important, again, not to limit yourself and to list all of the potential resources. The goal of this process is not to think about what you need for your project, but rather what you might have at your disposal in your community or your own backyard. Now, please go through the activity on page 19 so you can get a better idea of how to do this. Again, work within the framework of doing outreach as an OEC volunteer, but I don't want you to limit yourself by having a particular goal in mind. Really push yourself to come up with all of the resources you might have at your disposal in your local community. Please pause the video now and complete the exercise on page 19. Now you are going to come up with a sample project based on the community resources you have identified in the previous exercise. Please go to page 20 in your guide and start by identifying a potential project. First, identify resources you have and need to complete your project, the community sources you can get resources from, and if the community source or organization has a shared interest with your project or OEC. Ask yourself if there may be a potential future partnership. Please pause the video now and complete the exercise on page 20. Now that we have the tools to identify the resources we have available in our communities, the question is, how do we actually get people to change their behaviors and take actions for issues we know or care about? We all know that we can plan projects and sometimes we just don't get the results we were hoping for. People act interested, but they don't actually embrace the idea enough to change their day-to-day behaviors. Now, think of yourself. What behavior would you change to be a better environmentalist? Do you have a car? Would you give up your car? Think about why or why not. Why aren't we able to make the changes in our lives that we know are good for the environment and that we personally know would be the right choice to make? Giving up your car is a lot to ask, but when we break down the things that we know would help the planet into small, easy actions that are easy to implement in our everyday life, we are more likely to take action. Can you say you do at least 2 of the things on this list? How about 5 of these actions? But can you say that you do all of the things on this list? Think about why or why not. As an educated individual that knows you should be doing these things, why is it so hard to do all of the things on this list? Do you ever wonder why we all don't do the things we know that we should? Well, that's because education alone has little or no effect on sustainable behavior. Social scientists have done a lot of research, and these are a few examples of situations that demonstrate that education alone simply isn't enough to change behavior. 40 participants attended an energy efficiency workshop to foster greater awareness of steps that they could take to have more energy efficient homes. After the workshop, all 40 participants pledged to make changes in their homes and implement the things they learned about. However, when researchers asked them who actually took action, they found only one participant followed through and installed a low-flow shower head in their home. Another study looked at high school students who received a 6-day workshop that focused on creating an awareness of environmental issues. 2 months after the workshop, researchers followed up with them and found that they were no more likely to take action or be engaged in pro-environmental issues than their peers that did not attend the workshop. The last and maybe most telling example is when 500 people were interviewed and asked about personal responsibility for picking up litter. 94% acknowledged that individuals bore a responsibility for picking up litter. However, when leaving the interview, only 2% picked up litter that had been planted outside the door by the researcher. Essentially, they said that they would take action and then immediately did nothing. Clearly, people can know about and understand the problem, but still not do anything to change it. So the question is, if education alone doesn't actually change behavior, then what does? Luckily, there is a whole science around behavior change and things we can do to encourage people to adopt more sustainable behavior. Environmental psychologist Doug McKenzie Moore has studied techniques that work to foster sustainable behavior and presents these techniques in an approach called community-based social marketing. When organizing an event or a campaign, it is important to focus on 6 elements that over time will encourage individuals to adopt more sustainable behaviors. We will go over these 6 strategies for you to get a basic understanding of the steps you need to take to foster behavior change. Studies say that you should include as many of these elements as possible, but your strategy doesn't have to be comprehensive to use community-based social marketing. The first of these elements is commitment. Get people to agree to changes and make sure people know what they are agreeing to. Then, prompts. Remind us to do what we're already committed to doing. We are human and need reminders about things that we have made a commitment to. We can also use norms. People follow the pack. So get others to publicly show that they are committed to your campaign. Then we need to make sure that we use effective communication strategies and make our messages concrete and easy to understand. We can also use incentives or rewards as motivation. Lastly, we need to make sure and identify what might be a barrier to behavior change and, if possible, remove it. Remember, people are more likely to make changes that are easy. We will go through each of these elements individually and then apply them to an example related to OEC's work. The first aspect of community-based social marketing we are going to talk about is commitment. Remember, agreeing to a small request leads to a bigger commitment. Studies show that when people make a small commitment, like signing a pledge, they are more likely to make a bigger commitment in the future, like recruiting a friend to sign a pledge. Next, get the commitment in writing. Both verbal pledges and signed statements have worked, but written pledges have endured. OEC has the Vote with Your Fork pledge as an example of getting a commitment in writing. Alone, it is not enough, but when combined with other aspects of community-based social marketing, it becomes much more powerful. Next, make the commitment public. Even if they agree and you don't do it, it works. Why? It aids in pressuring others to make change. We can also recruit others. Get people to spread the commitment by simply asking a friend to participate or take action. Ask committers to ask others and you'll make their commitment public. This could be as simple as asking others to post what they did on Facebook or simply ask a coworker to ask another friend to get involved. Remember not to use coercion. Pressure doesn't work and just makes people defensive. People need to be willing to make change. Instead, focus on the values that we all share, and people will be more likely to take action. To recap, to ensure that we are using community-based social marketing, we need to get it in writing, make it public, get people to spread the commitment, and make sure we aren't using coercion. We all need reminders, right? Prompts help to remind us what we're already committed to doing. To make sure your prompts are going to work, make it noticeable, make it self-explanatory, and put it to where the behavior will take place. And remember to make it positive. We can tell from these prompts which ones have been successful and which ones have not. It's no secret that people follow the pack, so it's important to show people in the community that others are committed. Study after study shows that peer pressure is the secret to behavior change, despite the fact that the majority of Americans continue to claim that they take action to save the environment or save money. But that is not so. They actually only take action because their friends and neighbors are doing it. So get people to display their commitment at the time they are doing it and make sure that it is visible and close to where the action is taking place. For example, another study in fostering behavior change points out a college gym shower decided to display a prominent sign asking students to conserve water by turning off the shower while they soaked up. Only 6% did so initially. But when researchers planted an accomplice who shut off his water mid-shower, 49% of students followed suit. When there were 2 accomplices, compliance jumped to 67%, even though the accomplices didn't discuss their actions or make eye contact with other students. What does this tell us? Peer pressure works. And the only way to use peer pressure is by making a behavior a norm for everyday citizens. The next aspect of community-based social marketing is communication. The key to effective communication is asking yourself, how can you help people remember the importance of the action you are asking them to take in a way that is personal and believable to them? There are 4 things to take into consideration when talking about communication. First, is my message clear and vivid? If you help people visualize and understand information, they are more likely to recall it. Making the message personal will also make it more effective. Watch this video and decide what is clear and vivid about this marketing campaign.
Each one of these balloons represents 50 grams of greenhouse gas. You can't see it, but you produce greenhouse gas every time you use energy. The average home produces over 200,000 balloons every year. Save energy, and you'll also save money and reduce your impact on climate change. You have the power to make a difference. Authorised by the Victorian Government, Melbourne.
The next component of clear and effective communication is making sure you are using a compelling spokesperson. Ask yourself, does this spokesperson speak to the intended audience? I'm not sure Krusty the Clown is the appropriate choice to advertise a home pregnancy kit. However, to have an effective spokesperson, it is also important to know your audience. To do that, you have to know the audience you are talking to, which will make the message more applicable and personal to them. This advertisement by WWF could be talking about global warming, but to someone who doesn't know much about climate change, it might look like one of those Coca-Cola advertisements. It is important to take into consideration who is your audience and what the message will say to them. Lastly, describe what people lose when they don't act, but be careful not to be negative. Research shows that messages work best when they show what the individual is losing by not acting, rather than what the person is saving by acting. A campaign sponsored by the Environmental Defense Fund in 1988 used this method, and it was extremely effective at promoting recycling. The slogan was, "If you're not recycling, you're throwing it all away," and it was accompanied by an image similar to the one displayed here. The ad was an excellent example of what you are losing by not acting and helped raise the overall national rate of recycling from 10 to 21%, as well as expand curbside recycling programs from 600 programs to over 7,000. As you can see, this campaign was very successful. If the ad had simply asked people to recycle because it was good for the environment and the right thing to do, it would not have been nearly as successful. Simple changes in messaging can have a substantial effect on the success of a campaign. Watch the following 2 ad campaigns with messages around global warming. Which of these ads uses more effective communication tools? Think about why.
The 100% electric Nissan Leaf. Innovation for the planet. Innovation for all.
Another aspect of community-based social marketing is incentives. Incentives should reward positive behavior, be visible to the public, directly connect to the behavior, and recognize the individual for making a commitment or change in their lives. In OEC's Love Your River campaign, there is a prize incentive to take a pledge to love your river each month. And if you make 6 commitments over the course of the year, you are entered to win a grand prize. The neat part is, when I take a commitment on loveyourriver.org, I make my own page that details all of the commitments I have made over the course of the year. And the website lets me share my commitments with my friends through various social networking sites like Facebook. Incentives don't always have to be prizes. They can take other forms in order to recognize people that have made changes in their lives. The last and maybe hardest aspect of community-based social marketing is removing the barriers to make a particular behavior change. To remove obstacles, you must first identify what they are, so simply ask people what the barriers are to change. Next, find out if the barriers are perceived or actually going to keep folks from making a change. If you can challenge someone to overcome something once with a challenge or incentive, it may help to overcome the perceived barrier. Then think about what resources you need to remove barriers. If you don't have the time, space, or money to overcome a barrier, it may be time to rethink your strategy and seek alternatives with less barriers to success. Remember, small changes lead to bigger ones. And also remember, convenience and inconvenience are meaningful. Making good habits convenient works. It also works to make the activity you wish to discourage less convenient and more expensive. For example, imagine if it were easier to find unscented soap and you had to search carefully for something that contains fragrance. Imagine what the norm would be then. Removing barriers is one of the most important aspects of community-based social marketing and should be an integral part of each campaign to change behavior that you attempt. Look at this example. What aspects of community-based social marketing are being used here? What's good and what's bad about this example? So now we know we must design outreach campaigns that incorporate the principles of community-based social marketing. Whenever possible, our projects should strive to get a commitment, use prompts and norms, think about how we communicate our message, use incentives, and most importantly, try to remove barriers whenever possible. Remember, use these strategies whenever possible to maximize your effectiveness as a volunteer. In the future, when you are designing your projects, remember to think about your community assets and use the resources available to you. Remember the strategies of community-based social marketing and use them to foster behavior change. And get everyone involved. Participation is key to making change. Now go to the worksheet on page 24 and work through how you might be able to incorporate the principles of community-based social marketing into the project you developed in the last exercise. Use community-based social marketing and see what your project might look like. We thank you for completing the training on your role in your local community. See the instructions on the OEC Champions training to see what training module comes next. And please don't hesitate to contact the Community Outreach Coordinator at OEC with any thoughts, questions, or concerns. Thank you.